threes won't go down as Curry comes the other way. Curry to Green. Back to Curry. Step back. Three-pointer. Bang! Steph Curry drills the three. That's a 6-point Warriors lead. Curry double. Floats it into Green again. Green to Looney. Looney layup. He banks it home. Kevon Looney with a big bucket. And this will be now 27 consecutive series with at least one win on the road. That's an NBA record.
Truly phenomenal, Mike.
The NBA Finals are tied at 2 games apiece.
This is Nothing But That Sports Talk. Welcome to Nothing But That Sports Talk. Yeah, Golden State, they're not going out without a fight. And who better to talk Boston Celtics NBA Finals basketball than with the Shukri Wrights, the host of Shukri Wrights Radio. Welcome to the show.
I appreciate you having me on. Thank you for having me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. And yeah, you got to admit, this is obviously one of the best runs the Boston Celtics have had. Only this time, it's actually gotten back into the NBA Finals for the first time since 2010, where they were taken out by Kobe Bryant, the Los Angeles Lakers. They swept the Brooklyn Nets. They got revenge on the Milwaukee Bucks for their loss in 2019 second round playoffs. And they got revenge on the Miami Heat for the loss in the 2020 NBA bubble. And now they're literally locked in what is at least a 6-game series with the Golden State Warriors. So what are your thoughts?
I mean, this run has been pretty historic. It's never been done in the history of the NBA. If you told me back on January 6th when this team was 18-21 that this team would be playing in Game 6 of the NBA Finals, which would be a week from Thursday, it's hard to believe. It really is. And there's a lot of different reasons why I think that the Boston Celtics are in the position that they are in. One of them being the buy-in from the star players. You talk about Tatum and Brown buying into Coach Ime Udoka's philosophy, and as well as Smart, and as well as Horford, the Horford trade. It has really paid off huge dividends, like especially during this postseason run thus far for the Celtics, and as well as like you talk about the role players like Grant Williams, Peyton Pritchard. They have been huge and vital, a big key to this team. And you can't talk about the Celtics without the importance of Derek White, especially his importance during the last series in the East Finals against Miami. And I mean, like you look throughout this team, you really take a deep dive into the Boston Celtics in terms of where they are and how they've gotten to this point with the series tied 2-2, and they guaranteed themselves at least a Game 6 of the NBA Finals. It's pretty remarkable, no matter how you slice and dice it.
Exactly, and if you watch my reaction to when I was in D-Love Sports, which during that little viewing party she did for Game 1, I was blown away from when the Celtics literally blew out the Golden State Warriors in Game 1. Mm-hmm. It's all thanks to Al Horford finally getting his moment to shine. That was Al Horford during his days with the Florida Gators, where they won back-to-back national championships. That was Al Horford from his early days with the Atlanta Hawks when he got them to being the playoff team. That was Al Horford from when he made the Philadelphia 76ers title contenders to a certain extent, of course, that year when they got swept by these same Boston Celtics. And he went back to Boston after a couple of years off, and now he's in the NBA Finals. And an evolution of Jason Tatum's game. From the beginning where he went toe-to-toe with LeBron James in the 2018 Conference Finals, you knew he was bound for greatness eventually. It's just a matter of having to overcome some regressions that he suffered in the playoffs in order to get to this point. And now, look at it, going toe-to-toe with arguably the greatest shooter guys ever created, who's having the greatest year of his NBA career. At least when he burst out the gates, it's like Stephen Curry's Warriors never missed a beat. He broke the three-point record at the Garden, and he got past the Memphis Grizzlies, who was one of the favorites to win the NBA championship. And now, 2 rounds later, you get this series.
It really is amazing when you think about like just the journey that Tatum has been on, and you talk about his progression, and he still got some growing pains to do. And one of the things when I mentioned about the growing pains he still has to get through is learning to be assertive in the fourth quarter and not shrink from the spotlight, especially in tight games. I think game 4 last night was really telling, where the Celtics they're up in the game, and they're leading by 5 with 7 minutes 36 seconds left in the fourth quarter, you need your big guy or your big guns to come up huge, and that was something that Tatum talked about last night in his press conference, and he said that, hey, I gotta be better. I have to finish, and also more importantly, you gotta, as a team now, you gotta make your free throws. There's no excuse. I mean, their free throw shooting last night was atrocious. And that's probably putting it very nicely, to say the least. And I think, with Tatum as tremendous as he has been, especially in the beginning stages of the playoffs, you do still see the youth, playing a little bit, because he has been very inconsistent, and during these NBA Finals, to be blunt, he has not been great. He had an okay game 3, but game 1 he struggled. Game 2, he had the 13 assists and so forth. That was game 1 rather, but game 2, he just did not play well. Game 3 he was decent, but last night I just thought that although he got out to a good start, but for the second half, for some reason, he just began to struggle, and you just wonder if he's playing through something a lot more serious than what we all realize.
Yeah, that's it. You know what? He just had to work on the offense a little bit more. It's going to take a little while, though. I mean, unlike earlier Celtics rosters, unlike earlier Boston Celtics final teams from I'm talking like from when the NBA literally began. I mean, even for the years we weren't really thought of or watching basketball. Well, this is this roster's first appearance in the finals overall, after going through some growing pains between second round exits, first round exits, and conference finals exits. Since of course you're going to run into those pains, he's going to get adjusted to playing in an atmosphere that you're not used to playing in. And speaking of the atmosphere, when you go into these Celtics games, or at the very least watching the whole fan base reaction during this NBA Finals, what is that like for you?
It's been surreal, because I was also here 3 years ago when the Boston Bruins made their Stanley Cup final run all the way to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals 3 years ago, and I know how this city is when it comes to the sports teams, and I said it very bluntly on Facebook and even on social media that Boston is the best sports city in America, and it really is the truth, and I say that for a number of reasons. Having lived here for a little over half a decade now, and now as a media personality in this market, and as well as a play-by-play broadcaster in this region as well, you see how this region really rallies behind its teams. And for the Celtics, it's been 12 years since they have been to the NBA Finals, and to see the support, it really has been truly incredible. Last night, as a matter of fact, there were lines outside of every single bar surrounding the TD Garden area, and by the time the game started, it was basically filled a wall to wall. It was very hard to get into these spots, and even with the viewing party at Copper Square in Back Bay, for those who live in Boston who may be watching this or listening to this podcast later on, know what I'm talking about. It was just completely packed. So the support in this city has been truly tremendous, and it's been incredible to say the least. But I'm not surprised whatsoever. This city really lives and dies by its team, no matter what's going on. And it's been one hell of a run. It's been one hell of a season. Hopefully, it ends at championship battle number 18. But if you were to tell me back in December and January, where this probably a good portion of this fan base wanted the Brown and Tatum duo to be split up, I being one of them, I couldn't have envisioned this. But here we are. It's been incredible. The support has been absolutely breathtaking, to say the least. And I think it's reminding everybody why there is really no sports city like Boston, especially when the team is making a deep playoff run, let alone a championship run at that.
Exactly. And this is the same Boston Celtics team that my New York Knicks got some of their best wins of the season against, where they took about a double overtime, even with Marcus Smart hitting that game-tying shot to force the first one. And then RJ Barrett had literally the best moment of his NBA career when they were losing by as many as 28. And now they've got ridiculously hot. they know how to protect double digits leads. You see that when they took out the Brooklyn Nets in redemption for losing the first round against them a year ago. They literally survived a last minute scare for the Miami Heat in Game 7 when Jimmy Butler missed that shot. Now, I mean, I could go on and on and on about this. I mean, this could go either way. But if the Boston Celtics wins this championship, would it be just as great as the one in 2008?
That's a good question, but I would actually say this would actually mean more easily because 08, the thing that I remember is that team was so dominant from stretch to stretch, from beginning to end, that by the end of the regular season, I remember the prognosticators saying like that the Celtics were expected to win the NBA title, but when we had our first round series against Atlanta, man, that series was unforgettable in its own right. When no one thought that series was going to go 7 games, like nobody. They were expecting it to be a quick 4-game sweep or a 5-game series, but the Hawks literally fought tooth and nail to stay in that series. And we all know, like as they say, the rest is history. But with this team, it would be more special. The reason is because of where they have been. Again, like I personally, on my own radio show and even regionally, I have been very critical of the Tatum, Brown, and Smart trio going back 2 years ago during the pandemic when the Celtics had their dust up down in the bubble in the Eastern Conference Finals against Miami at that time. And I just believe that at that moment in time, I said, this is not a team that can win together. I was beating that drum fiercely. I don't think this team can win together with this core. Something has to change. Even going back to a year ago, when it was announced that that Marcus Smart had signed that 6-year contract extension, I bluntly said that I hate it because if you're Smart, you have to literally start playing up to your contract. And the beginning of the season, the truth is that this was a team, especially specifically Smart, they were not doing their part. There was a lot of ISO basketball. This was a team that was still trying to figure themselves out, playing under a new head coach in Ime Udoka, who they wanted, by the way. And you talk about that RJ Barrett game winning shot over the Celtics when they played the Knicks. Jason Tatum a couple of days ago said that was the low point of the season. No, and I wholeheartedly agree, because to blow a 25-point lead like that and to lose in that type of fashion at MSG was the low moment of the season. But was it a turning point? Not really, because the turnaround really started around the end of January. And I remember this vividly. When Jaylen Brown tweeted something that has now begun to really take of a legendary status. And if the Celtics win, that will be a tweet that will be framed in a lot of people's homes here in Boston, Metro Boston, and across New England. The energy is about to shift. And he was right. It shifted in a way that nobody really ever could have foreseen. And I remember in late February, early March, thinking to myself, I'm listening to one of the games as I'm making my way home one night. And I'm thinking to myself, they're literally blowing out teams by 15, 20, 25 points on a nightly basis. And I remember tweeting something about this. I'm like, what's going on with this team? Like, hold up. Is this really happening? Like, and before you know it, they get to the number 2 seed. And we all know, the story and the journey of the playoff run and the finals run for the Celtics team so far. But there's no question in my mind, if they somehow win the next 2 of the next 3 games, this run would be, no question, the greatest championship run in the history of the NBA. And I'm not saying this because I'm a Celtics fan or because I love Boston, but there has never been a team in NBA history. You can look this up yourself, Rafiq. There has never been a team in the history of the NBA that has been below 500 at the halfway mark of the season and have made it to the NBA Finals, let alone win it. The only other run that I can compare this to But even then, there really is no comparison. Is the 1999 New York Knicks, because I remember that team. That team was a number 8 seed, and they had no business going to the NBA Finals in '99. Literally none. They weren't supposed to beat Miami. They weren't even supposed to compete against Indiana. Like, but it goes to show you, like, even if you were to compare the '99 Knicks, who ultimately came up short against the Spurs in the NBA Finals, versus what the Celtics are doing now. What the Celtics are doing now is even more historic, because this is a team that was like I said, they were 18-21, they were 23-24 after 47 games, and here we are.
Exactly. Here we are. And you know what? I'm glad you brought up the 1999 New York Knicks. And as much as it pains me to say this, being a New York native and still living in Brooklyn, New York, that 99 New York Knicks, you don't think about the years. You don't think about the Knicks being in the finals unless it's the years they won.
Mm-hmm.
This Celtics team, at this one, it's actually going to a 6th game, guaranteed.
It is, yeah.
I mean, seriously. They even went a lot further than the Boston Bruins when they got taken out by the Carolina Hurricanes this year.
Yeah.
But Boston, it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that many years. I think it was 5-6 years ago. They won a championship against the Vancouver Canucks. Like
that was 11 years ago. But yeah,
11 years ago. Yeah. Then you had the Boston Red Sox winning championships in 2014 and in 2018. Now
2013 and 18.
2013 against the Cardinals, and then they went out again, so they took out the Los Angeles Dodgers, and now Boston Celtics might actually get things done. I swear, coming from a guy who actually went to Boston in 2008, this season's known for championship greatness. Oh yeah, you can't forget about the championship wins Tom Brady had during his days with the Patriots, and it was one against Seattle, another one when he had that miracle comeback against the Atlanta Falcons. They had that was literally the worst Super Bowl win you could ever think of against Los Angeles Rams, and Boston might win another one. And I know I probably asked this already, but this championship would mean a lot to the culture of Boston sports if they get it done.
It would, but I would even take it a step further. It would be arguably the most what I say improbable. I would have. We're talking about specifically in the 21st century.
Exactly. Yes.
I would have to say, yeah, I would easily, because I think of the championships that they won even before I moved there, and the championships that they have won since I moved there. Pardon me. And the 2018 Red Sox, they were a bandwagon from beginning to end. Like they were truly the best team in baseball from the start of the 2018 season. Pardon me, to the end of the 2018 World Series, which was Game 5. The Patriots, they sputtered during that 2018 regular season according to their standards, and then I remember thinking specifically after the game against Miami, I blurted out loud, I don't think this is the Patriots' year to win it. I mean, and I didn't take much then, but once they got to the playoffs, because they were the number 2 seed, they had the first round bye. Once they got to the playoffs, they beat the Chargers, and then they went on to beat the Chiefs in the AFC title game, and then the Rams in Super Bowl 53. It was like, okay, like you figured that they were going to turn on the switch, so to speak. But the Celtics, again, like if they end up winning the championship, the thing that I'm going to remember the most easily as why this would be the most meaningful is because my biggest criticism and the city's biggest criticism with this young core has been they have gotten to 3 of the last 5 Eastern Conference Finals, but could not get over the hump. This was a team that they weren't supposed to be here from this past January. Even towards the end of January, they weren't supposed to be here. But the fact that they not only finished with the number 2 seed, but to get to the finals and win it with this core, with Tatum and Brown finally winning a championship, there would be a very deep psychological shift in terms of the national perspective, in terms of how they view Tatum and Brown as the young duo in the NBA. But then you can't forget about the other guys like Robert Williams, Time Lord, who I had a conversation with one of my dearest friends here in New England. I said bluntly, I think Robert Williams is the best young center when healthy in the NBA. I mean, you go look at his impact on this team alone this postseason.
Both defensively and
Offensively, defensively, it's night and day when he's on the court. That's not even disputable. So, and it's scary to think that he's only 24. He's only going to get better. His knee is going to be fine. It's going to get better. Like, he'll have the offseason to rest and whatnot, and part of next season or whatever. But he's only 24, and he's only going to get better playing in Coach Ime Udoka's system. So I think, no question, this would be the most historic and the most unlikely, but the most meaningful. I think that distinction would have to go to the 2004 Red Sox, because we're talking about 86 years. And even to this day, all I got to do is leave this building and talk to someone down the block and say, hey, like, so tell me, what are your thoughts on the 2004 Red Sox? They're like, dude, that was the one. That was the one championship where you literally saw people visiting grave sites of their loved ones and going to them and telling them, hey, we did it, finally. And there's no question the 04 Red Sox still are on top of that list. But I think after that one, you have to maybe the 2022, 21-22 Celtics are up there.
Yeah, it's tough to compare. And this is we're talking about the same one who asked Jason Tatum hit a game-winning layup off the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, come on. I mean, we pretty much agreed to this one. So, I mean, there's no way. This is no way. I mean, Boston's going to be hungry because, we're talking about two teams that are both undefeated or been on hot streaks far when they lost. So if you ping pong wins and losses this way, this could easily go to the Boston Celtics. Now, as far as Stephen Curry's legacy goes, if Stephen Curry were the one did lose in this finals, will this be a slap to the face for his legacy? Because think about it. All his finals wins are coming against the Bronx Cavaliers, with the exception of 2016. Later finals, he couldn't beat anybody else. So would this be a huge slap to the face for Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson?
I vehemently disagree. I don't think it would be, because you can't control who's going to come out of the East those years that they wanted. Like, you could say what you will, but Steph Curry at the end of the day is still going to go down as the greatest shooter that God ever created, and that's not even hyperbole. But if you were to ask me, if the Warriors lose to the Celtics, would it be a colossal failure, disappointment? No, because I think even at the beginning of the NBA Finals, everybody knew, and as we were previewing the NBA Finals, knew that you're going up against a defense that you have not seen or faced at all in the West. No other team comes close in terms of the way that the Celtics defend when all of five of those guys are defending. I'm talking about even Jaylen Brown, who's a terrific defender. You got to give Tatum credit. He can defend very well on his end of the floor as well. But you get the contributions defensively from Al Horford, Smart, and Robert Williams. And even when Grant Williams is on the floor, massive. So I do think that let's say if the Warriors win it, absolutely, this would be absolutely tremendous. And I think Game 4 would be the game that they would look at as the ultimate turning point for the Warriors. But I do think also, if they lose, it wouldn't be a slap in the face to the legacy of Steph Curry. No way. I think that in itself is ridiculous. Because even then, you realize just how good those Warriors teams were. Like, people forget that first championship, the Warriors had the best bench in the NBA, and it wasn't even close.
Exactly.
Like, and that people really forget that, and it makes me mad. Like, I think of guys like Sean Livingston, who was on that team,
without question, like who's a monster,
like and who was vital to that 2014-15 Warriors team that won the NBA title. So for me, I think it's insulting that people would think that if the Warriors lose, it would be a slap in the face in terms of like his legacy. I'm like, no way, absolutely not, no.
Exactly, and you know what? The same could go for the Boston Celtics. I mean, as I mentioned earlier on the show, if the Celtics do go on to lose, I know you talked about how they just not able to get over the hump if they were to lose this finals, but this is really not too bad though, because Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown is still early in their careers. While Al Horford, obviously, he's kind of running out of time to win a championship. But the rest of the roster, they got plenty of years left in the tank. This is their first finals appearance with this roster alone. They could go back up and they have a chance to go back and get the lead in NBA championship rings, which is the most all time. In the 75th anniversary season, may I have you. Now, when you think about the Boston Celtics, you think in championship tradition. So This loss wouldn't really hurt too much, no matter how long it's been since they've been to the finals. I mean, it's just.
I mean, it would hurt. I mean, it's not. It's. I mean, I don't think it's fair to diminish like whether if it would hurt or not. But I understand what you're saying, so that they're young. But I think it would be a major mistake for people to say that, well, they have time, they're young in their careers, but there are no guarantees. And the reason why I say that is because I can't help but to think about a team that I remember that people were saying very similar things about, but they never got back. And I'm going to tell you exactly what that team was. That was a 2011-2012 Oklahoma City Thunder.
That's true.
You go back and you just reflect for a moment. We all remember that 2012 NBA playoff in its entirety, but specifically that NBA final between OKC and Miami. Who did OKC have at that time in terms of its core? You had James Harden,
Kevin Durant.
Yeah, Katie. You had Russell Westbrook. You also had
Kendrick
Perkins as well. Correct. This was a young team, a young core with the first three guys that I mentioned. People thought they're gonna get back. They're gonna get back. They'll be fine. They got back in 2016, but by that point, James Harden was already gone. He was already traded to Houston, and they never got over that hump. And that's why I say, like, I'll be very careful in saying that, because there are no guarantees. It's just the truth.
Yeah, there's definitely no guarantees, but I can guarantee you that if this pace goes on to the way it is, you're probably going to see a Game 7 this one, and Boston's probably going to pull a rabbit off their hat.
I wouldn't be surprised, because, oh my God, this team has been so much fun to watch, but so maddening at the same time. Because I look at losses like last night, and I say to myself, this is now, I'll say 3 straight series they've had such losses on home court, in terms of finally getting a lead, going into the fourth quarter, can't finish it out, and then you fall behind, and it's like this team literally plays its best basketball when their backs are against the wall, and they have not lost back-to-back games in 3 months. They haven't.
Ridiculous.
And which is absurd, and it really speaks to the mettle of this team, which really blows my mind when I think about, like, man, we all know that this team, and I was talking about this with a fan last night, and I said, listen, everybody here knows when this team is playing at its fullest potential, there's no team in the NBA that can stop it. Not even Golden State, not even Miami. Nobody in the NBA can match what the Celtics can do when they're firing on all cylinders. But the problem is, games like last night are reminders as to why I think it's so maddening that they haven't grown out of their self-inflicted wounds, because that's what they are. Go back and you look at the Milwaukee series, self-inflicted wounds. Miami, oh my God, self-inflicted wounds in their losses. I'm more specific, their losses in those series, self-inflicted. They weren't because the other team were better than them. No, it was because they turnovers, massive problem. When they have more than 14 turnovers, Rafiq, they were like, I think 2 and 14, I think 2 and 15. Talk about either one of those two records, but it is bad. It's really bad. But when they have less than that, it's like you flip the record around. When they don't turn the basketball over, they're unbeatable. But when they do, yeah.
And that just goes to show that turnovers is a major part of the game. It will determine whether a team is good or whether a team is bad, especially during playoff runs like this.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, on to another topic. Of course, We know the Colorado Avalanche are in the Stanley Cup Finals. They're awaiting the winner of the Rangers and the Lightning. These New York Rangers, they just sweated their way through 2 series where they went to a Game 7, where they won their way through elimination games. Do you see the New York Rangers surviving elimination games this time around?
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because you talk about what the Rangers have been able to do, and it's very hard to really discount them. And I'm not going to. But it's going to be hard because the difference between the first 2 rounds and this one is that they didn't face the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning. That's the difference. And they did not absolutely do their job in putting the foot on the neck of the defending champions when they should have in Game 3. I was actually talking to one of my dearest friends back in New York yesterday, and I was talking to her about this. She's a diehard Ranger fan, and I was saying, if the Rangers lose this series, I'm gonna look back at Game 3 because they were up 2-0. You were up 2-0, and then the one play, you should have scored on, but you didn't. And the Tampa Bay come back to win that one, and they have not trailed since. So now tonight, at the time of this recording, Saturday, tonight's Game 6, it's going to be a major test because this is a team that they have dominated. They're 8-2 in closeout elimination games, and that is an astounding record when you think about it. So I look at the series from a big picture overall standpoint, and I say to myself, I'm not trying to counter the Rangers, but this is the Tampa Bay Lightning we're talking about. And I said this to someone before, that don't let this team wake up, because when the Rangers were up 2-0, I said, don't let this team wake up, because when they wake up, you're not beating them. and here you are.
This is the same Tampa Bay Lightning that took out the New York Islanders in the Stanley Cup Finals 2 years in a row on their way towards
Eastern Conference Finals.
Corrections. But I mean, of course, last year it took to Game 7, but they shut out the New York Islanders. I'm like, okay, if the Islanders does not score Game 7, they're not winning the series. This Tampa Bay Lightning is just there's something else. And you got Ryan McDonough for the New York Rangers. Come on.
I mean, it's deeper than that. Like, Ryan McDonough is part of a fantastic blue line core for Tampa Bay. That includes Mikhail Sergachev and as well as Victor Hedman as well. So this is a Lightning team that, even though they lost their entire third line last off season to free agency, Blake Coleman signing elsewhere, they've done a pretty good job of continuing on to add offense. You look at guys especially like Corey Perry, who's playing on that third line. He's done a pretty admirable job, and I just think that listen, like you have awoken the wrong beast, and this is a Lightning team that right now, like, they are poised to return back to the Stanley Cup final. If the Rangers somehow play their best game of the season tonight, I don't think it'd be surprising at all if you watch this team all postseason long. But if they lose tonight, the Rangers lose tonight, I'm going to look at Game 3, because Game 3, that was the game I strongly felt that the Rangers should have, in fact, delivered that fatal blow, and they didn't, and they did not finish.
Yeah, but then again, the Rangers haven't been used to series where they were actually up 2-0 as opposed to being down in certain portions of the series. And you know what? It's kind of not fair to say the Rangers are done when they're facing elimination, because just like from 2004, 2013, 2016, something like that, they've won at least one elimination game. That's more elimination games than even the New York Knicks won during their last playoff appearance. So all I can do is just laugh, saying you can't count out the New York Rangers. I mean, of course, the momentum's going to end at some point, and they haven't pulled out the Stanley Cup championship yet. But the persistency of never giving up, even when you're down 3-1 or 3-2 or 3-0, being able to put up a tough series somewhat. That's how the New York Rangers are. This is who they are. Whatever can go right will go right. That's pretty much the opposite of the Dallas Cowboys, but that's a cover for the episode. But yeah, that's pretty much all I can say about that.
That's why tonight's Game 6 is going to be interesting in a sense of how this team responds to adversity yet again in a must-win elimination game. I mean, you saw the answer to that in Game 6 against Pittsburgh, Game 6 against Carolina, Game 6 tonight against the Tampa Bay Lightning, the two-time defending Cup champions. It's going to be interesting, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. Now, switching gears are great. As you know, we got MLB baseball going on. The Mets and Yankees both lead the division, with the Yankees like literally 42 wins to begin the season. The Mets, they're coming off a win against the Anaheim Angels, or Los Angeles Angels and Anaheim in this case. And then the Red Sox, even though they're kind of far away, but they got in their group back, and they're literally tied with the Cleveland Guardians for the last wild card spot. So, do you see the Boston Red Sox return to the playoffs this season after the type of year they've had?
It wouldn't surprise me because of the final wild card spot. It wouldn't. I mean, they have been the best team in baseball in the last 30 games. They're 21-9, and I mean, if anything, the third wild card spot is going to be the reason why they get into the postseason. And now with the brand new playoff format, now starting this October. You have the wild card round. It's now a best of 3, not a single game elimination anymore. It's now a best of 3, and as well division series you have a best of 5, LCS World Series best of 7. So I think the Red Sox may have a chance here, like based on the run that they've been on so far. But what is Chaim Bloom going to do at the trade deadline to address the certain weaknesses of the Boston Red Sox? They need bullpen help right now, as it currently slates. If and when Chris Sale does return this season, he's going to be moved to the bullpen because that's where they need the most help. And Garrett Whitlock is going to be pitching in the rotation for the Red Sox. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out for the Red Sox. But if they do make the playoffs, I would not be surprised at all, considering the new playoff format, and that really would be the reason why.
Exactly. When you add more playoff seeds, I mean, this is something that they've been preaching ever since that playoff format they did in 2020, and they went back to the old playoff format. Now they're going back to this. I mean, a lot can happen. I mean, you had Trevor Story's been having some monster numbers with 41 RBIs. You have JD Martinez, who's leading the team in batting average and on base percentage. It's batting average with 34 with .349.
Right.
Like, seriously. This Boston Red Sox team, when they get it together, watch out. They're going to be a problem coming out of that wild card. I wouldn't want to face them. Seriously.
It's going to be interesting. Like, I'm not willing to go that far. I said there'll be a problem, but there are weaknesses that they're going to have to address. I'm interested to see as to how they will address it, but time will tell.
Yeah, time will tell indeed. Well, that'll wrap up this episode. Nothing but that sports talk. But before I let you go, why don't you talk about your experience being a play-by-play commentator for Brown University last season? And, well, you mentioned earlier in the show that you had your first experience doing play-by-play for high school sports. Now Brown University. Like, what is that experience like for you, finally able to do commentary?
It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. It's been really interesting too, because last fall I did do high school football for Be Big Live, and that was my first time doing play-by-play, period. I always knew I've always wanted to do play-by-play. And what makes this particular opportunity incredible is that it came out of nowhere. And I tell people this, like, who have asked me a lot, like, it really came out of nowhere. Like, someone came and messaged me on LinkedIn and said, hey, we're looking to expand our broadcast and talent pool, and we saw your work, and we're very interested in bringing you aboard. Like, when would be a good time to talk to you? And the day that it happened, I just remember like feeling just shocked. But it's the same lesson that I tell other people who are looking to get in this business, and that is post. You gotta be willing to post and put in the work, because that's how you get seen. And like, I truly don't think I would have gotten the job if I did not post the broadcasting clips that I posted on LinkedIn, and so forth. And I do think that it's really it's huge. it's been wonderful. I can't wait to return to doing play-by-play in the fall. It's going to be a big fall coming up, and as well as winter. So I'm very excited. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's all about creating opportunities, like you do with the Shukri Wrights radio show, and you got your other radio shows that you create opportunities with. You also write, I believe, freeways or something like that. You're doing so much, and I admire everything you do. You did your own hustle, you built your own experience, and now look you are. You're a broadcaster for Brown University, which is not too far from Massachusetts, but I'm sure you guys should get the baseball team down. Now you're gonna get to do some basketball. You're gonna get to do some football. Like you could be developing a point where you're talking sports with Kendrick Perkins on the air on NBA Today. Trust me, believe that.
God willing, I look forward to that day as well, and as well as you can watch the games on ESPN Plus. It's exclusively on ESPN Plus, so that'll be where you'll be able to watch and whatnot.
Exactly, and that's kind of the same hustle I've had. You know what? You inspired me because I've been doing these interviews. These were nothing but that sports talk on my way towards covering the WNBA virtually. I got into Connecticut, so I got into Liberty. I even did one Liberty game about a year ago. And not to mention I even get to cover the USA men's basketball team where I interviewed guys like Kevin Durant, so many NBA talents and WNBA talents. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a process, and you just gotta find your joy within that process. And trust me, it's going to pay off. You have to really believe that it will pay off at some point. Just keep at it, and you got this, man. And congratulations to you as well on your continued success as well.
Exactly. And to all the ballers out there, get your head in the game and enjoy the rest of the 2022 NBA Finals.